reevaluating your entire life after an autism diagnosis. So for those of us discovering we're autistic later in life, this new perspective often changes everything. A new lens, a new filter, a new explanation, completely reshaping the story of our life. In this video, I'll share a couple of stories of how this has affected me personally, along with some common experiences that I hear time and again from our community. And then at the end, I'll give you my 2 tips for the best ways to get support in your journey of rediscovery. Part of this video has been sponsored by BetterHelp Online Counselling. See the link in the video description for a special offer from them. Hi everyone, Paul Mikulev here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So for me personally, autism is the golden thread that ties together previously unrelated experiences. Why was I bored at school? Why did I struggle so hard to make friends? Why am I largely uninterested in mainstream culture? And that's really just a start. The list goes on. Why am I seemingly immune to peer pressure? Why can't I cope at work? Why do so many of my relationships seem to break down for no apparent reason? I could go on, but you get the idea. Autism also explains many of the positive things in my life. Why am I so good at staying calm? Why was I always top of the class at school? Why do I still stubbornly persist when every other sane person has given up already? Okay, so funny story on that one. I once did a 50-kilometer walk for charity. That's about 31 miles for the metrically challenged. And I finished dead last. I was literally the last person to walk across the finish line. All the officials were packing up. I nearly completely missed the deadline. It took me over 15 hours to complete. And you might think at first that it's because I was slow. I mean, it was legitimately difficult with over half the course through incredibly mountainous terrain. So I'm not disappointed with my result there. The thing that I find the most interesting is the reason why I came last. It was not because I was the slowest. It was not because I was the least fit. It's because everyone behind me pulled out. Most people in that position, including half my team, would have pulled out or given up. But I stubbornly stuck with it one foot after another until I eventually finished dead last. And I kind of feel like this is the story of my life. I tended to stick with things long after any reasonable, sane person would have given up, or at least should have given up by any objective measure. So what does this have to do with autism? Very good question. At first glance, absolutely nothing. It's just a random story. I'm describing my personal stubborn persistence, which does not necessarily mean I'm autistic, but this is just one of many countless experiences that having the lens of autism helps bring into perspective. Another example is how I am socially. So you might know that my special interest for the last 3 decades or so has been emotional intelligence. I can understand and explain what's happening in social dynamics extremely well. Why? Well, because since the age of about 3, I've been asking myself the question, how do I play with the other kids? How do I get along with these other human beings? How do people work? How does society work? And the deeper underlying question is, how can I figure out a way to be a part of it? And you'll notice the implicit assumption that I'm not currently a part of it. So to illustrate this point, I remember being 3 years old in kindergarten. The other kids were playing a game and I wanted to join in. It was a very simple game. They would basically climb up to the top of the play equipment and call out, "I'm the king of the castle and you're the dirty rascal." And therefore, when I tried to climb up as well, they would stop me and push me back down. So what to do? Well, I hatched a plan, obviously. I can't climb up if there's someone else already there, but if I'm the first one there, no one can stop me. So I focused all my attention on watching the clock, and the second that the teachers let us out to play, I ran straight to the play equipment, climbed right up to the top, and no one could stop me. I can't remember if I actually said any of the king of the castle stuff, but when a little girl tried to climb up behind me, I pushed her down and said, "You're the dirty rascal," and she fell on the ground and started crying, and then I was in trouble, and then I just gave up trying to play that particular game. Why is trying to find a way to play with the other kids so hard? Well, now, with my newfound autism, suddenly that experience, again, gets put into perspective. Now, one other thing that autism does is it gives a new and more helpful label that I can start to use. And you might be wondering why a label would be helpful at all. And essentially, the reason is because if we don't have a conscious label, then we pick up unconscious ones. So now, the new label of autistic can help to dispel some of the older labels like lazy or awkward or weird or creepy. Now I can more clearly say, no, I wasn't lazy, I'm autistic and I was doing my best. Now, realistically, I was pretty lucky when it came to labels. The one that I got most from the teachers, at least in primary school, for example, was the label of gifted. And this explained a lot of things for me. It explained why I was bored at school. It explained why I didn't really feel much connection to my peers. It explained why I was socially awkward, and so on. As you can imagine though, the kids themselves were not quite so kind, and they preferred labels like loser, loner, or my personal pet hate, especially in high school, tag along. I don't know if you've picked that one up, but basically it's the person in the group who is kind of there, but is kind of no one really wants around. And if you stopped turning up to the group, no one would notice because you don't really have a place to belong here. And when you think about it, a lot of my coping strategies, like using my dreadlocks as a mask, for example, were deliberate attempts to try and fit in and belong. And then there's the academic and employment questions. Why could I get near 100% in my maths and science subjects and yet struggle to read all the way through my English novel in the 6 months we have before the exam? In my work as an engineer, there was one time where I took on the analytical work of several people at a time and was highly praised for the speed and accuracy of my work. But then asked me to write a report and suddenly I'm last again. Then there's the issue of burnout, trying to keep pace with the world. And often this doesn't seriously manifest itself until the full force of life's pressures, work, family, kids, taxes, pushes us all the way to breaking point. So it's quite common to have a major burnout fairly early on in adult life, and finally having a reason for that takes away a lot of the blame and shame that might otherwise accompany it. Why aren't I coping? There must be something wrong with me. That type of message. Autism provides a much more comprehensive answer. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm autistic, my brain is wired differently, and I'm overloaded. That's why I'm not coping right now. My response is very reasonable given my situation. Aside from work, kids and family life is another area for reevaluation. Do you sometimes feel guilty for not giving more? Or maybe your relationship broke up and your partner made it very clear that it's your fault for being different. I personally had to completely reassess my past relationships and decide for myself, well, how much of it truly was my fault and how much of it was the inability of my partner to understand me. Having a better understanding of autism showed me so many additional areas of myself where I had the potential to learn and grow. And at the same time, it took away the stress and the pressure from me to think that it's all my fault and to start expecting the world to meet me halfway and to start asking people to meet me halfway. In fact, trying to do everything myself was a major reason for the burnout in the first place. Learning to ask for help, learning to receive help, learning to communicate my needs, learning that it's okay to put myself in situations that are more favorable for me. All of these things make a huge difference. But finally, we come to the big question, the one that all of us need to ask and answer for ourselves. The question of, who am I? I mean, autism affects every aspect of life, so it's no surprise that it's so closely linked to identity. Have I been masking? How much and in what ways? And crucially, who am I without the mask? There's so much to unpack there that calling it a reevaluation of your entire life is no exaggeration. One of the best ways to unpack these big questions is with the help of other people. So with that in mind, I recommend two broad approaches to find support. Number one is to find a community of other autistic people who are also walking this journey of rediscovery together. If you're not sure where to start, you might like to check out our online social group. I'll leave a link in the description, otherwise you can find us on Facebook. We have weekly Zoom meetings run by volunteers just like you. The second approach is to find a professional to talk to. I mean, friends and family are great if they are available for you to talk to. However, they're not trained mental health professionals. These days, you can easily find therapists locally or online. And if you're not sure where to start, you might like to try BetterHelp online counseling. They've sponsored this part of the video, and you can see a link in the video description to get a special offer from them of 10% off your first month. One of the best parts about their service is they make it really easy for you to start. You basically fill out a questionnaire with your personal needs and preferences, and they match you to a therapist automatically. If you're not sure if online counseling is good for you at the moment, you might like to check out my previous video on the pros and cons of online counseling so that you can make that decision for yourself. So finally, I'm very curious to hear your experience. What was it like for you to reevaluate your life after diagnosis? So that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.